And we are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Wolf. Welcome to another podcast. Sitting down here with me here from Spectral Labs. They're building the future of on-chain AI, letting people create autonomous crypto agents for, and by the way, with just language, natural language, no coding required. But their platform is creating the ability, and the goal here, especially because we talk so much about trading on crypto, they're looking to make a AI agent that is able to trade these markets effectively and potentially better than us us mere mortal humans who are trying to keep our emotions in check amidst all the absolute chaos in the markets. And it's not just this casino pulling slots, this agent who's just addicted to the casino. Rather, it's an agent that is monitoring these markets and keeping track of things and keeping up to date and hopefully trading these ranges really, really well. And so that is one of the aspects in particular that I'm excited about. They do other things as well that we're going to poke into. But it's great to have you here. I'm really excited to get into the conversation.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Definitely. So if you could, before we jump into like the actual platform, I kind of give a bit of a brief introduction. Could you give a brief introduction as well on yourself and how you ended up here on the team and building all this stuff, growing it in Spectral Labs universe?
Wonderful. That's a very interesting question. So my crypto journey started back in 2017. That's when I was just graduating computer science fresh out of India. Got first exposed to Ethereum. Wasn't exposed to like really trading in crypto, which is where most people actually get their start. Because back then in India, there was just one exchange where you could properly get exposed or buy a cryptocurrency. Everything was freshly new, but got exposed to Ethereum, started just developing, building small projects. But then wanted to move to the US. Moved to the US, went to Duke, got my MBA, landed a consulting role, and I was one of the formative members building the blockchain team at EY, like helping Fortune 500 clients understand how to use blockchain, what to do about blockchain, how to think about that in terms of the digital transformation and all of that. So did that, and then went on to work with the Coinbase custody team. From Coinbase custody team, took on a banking role with Truist, into digital assets, one of the top 10 banks in the US, and now like fully transitioned about 1.5 2 years ago to Spectral, where so it's kind of been an interesting journey. I've seen all of crypto from multiple angles possible, like be it a centralized exchange angle, be it like what we are doing right now, which is obviously very very much on the region side, seen also from an institutional angle. So I've had that good experience of just having a overall perspective. um, what we are building at Spectral is our mission is to make on-chain AI as accessible to the retail user. And most of AI until now, like especially on-chain AI, has been around launching tokens and launching agents. But the conversation we need to really be having is what is the utility that the agents are providing? Right? What do you do with these on-chain AI agents, and are they making crypto for me easier than what I do myself? Where is the value in using an AI? Because the agents are really efficient. Like that's a given now, right? Like we don't need to debate that. Agents are far efficient than humans are. So where does that efficiency really tie down? Our entire product focus at Spectral is to think about that question and think about it hard and build products that answer that question. So we started this journey like roughly a year ago when we first trained fine-tuned some models to make Solidity code generation much more efficient and much more compliant. Then we went on to build like one of our agents was called Moonmaker. It was an agent that just created meme coins for you. You give it an idea, it'll do the creative work for you, just punch out a meme coin. And we launched like roughly around like 15-ish thousand meme coins using that, just one agent. And then we kind of like around October last year, we saw the market like after GOAT, right? Really. And then we thought from a product sense that okay, we were trying to work our way around the autonomy of the agent, but we don't need to do that because people actually want the agent to perform autonomously. We just need to build guardrails that makes it perform in a way uh, and do something useful. So that's when we launched our launch pad back in Jan, which was focused around launching autonomous agents with a personality that trade on Hyperliquid. And now what we have is a far more advanced version of that, where we have an entire hedge fund where agents are trading with each other. They are trading, like they are discussing ideas with each other and directly placing trades through a vault. That vault is called the Spectra's hedge fund. And so the objective is like we want to make agents do things, provide utility that is more than what retail users can access themselves, and that's where our entire progression and mission sort of is around.
I love that breakdown, and I can't help it. Like sometimes you'll be in AI spaces and people are just over the conversation. They're like, dude, like it's like they'll be like, dude, the VR world was supposed to be all this and it's not. The AI was supposed to be this.
Yeah.
But then you'll talk to someone who's in the world, boots in the grounds, and they're building. They're like, no, you don't understand. Actually, you do not understand what's happening here. There's some really cool stuff. Because I think that statement you made at the beginning of your take, which was that these agents are better at doing a lot of the things than we are. And because they're stripped down, they've got a very specific set of parameters they're staying within. And within that, it's so cool that now there's autonomous agents who are able to operate with a little bit of autonomy, but it's still within a set amount of parameters that we're able to set. And within that, it's like not going to sit there and, feel depressed one day because something happened in their life. And now they're going to, they're not going to exactly operate the way they did the day before, where it's kind of like emotionless. And so there's many ways where the agent makes a lot more sense. And it's so crazy because people are like, dude, I would hire this person. But I just need them to do these 4 things. I don't want I don't want there to be variety in the results that they provide. I want it to be consistent every single time. And you're sitting there going like, dude, you want an AI agent is actually what you want. It's just, you don't realize what you're asking for. So one of the questions I had, and actually, if you have any thoughts on that, happy to let you hop in.
Yeah, I think the single biggest advantage, like we've seen this with Spectra, and one of the comparisons that we have done, uh, internally a lot of times is what would you as a human do if you had that position in your portfolio? Obviously that's a very subjective question, but what generally happens is we have a large bias around past trades. We tend to correlate our past performances a lot with what we are trading now and what we would trade in the future, but the science is not correlated. Like every trade has to be thought of independently, every position has to be thought of independently, and its risk on the portfolio has to be thought of independently. Agents don't have emotions, which is one of the foremost principles why we decided to even build this, because an agent has 2 significant advantages over a human. It doesn't have emotions, so it doesn't have any bias regarding its own decision making. It doesn't go into self-doubt. It doesn't go into any overt bias around, oh, I like but these particular types of coins, or I like this particular type of momentum, or I'm generally more profitable in these kind of conditions. Those are just biases. They have no basis in statistical relevance or statistical certainty, right? um, so agent doesn't think that way. Second thing, agents are much faster at processing information than what humans can. So the way Spectra works right now is Spectra is in real time taking its news sources from a couple of different varieties. It is looking at all latest Telegram channels and what's happening in them. It is looking at on-chain data. It is looking at prominent news outlets, just macro news that are floating around us. It is taking all of that information and literally processing it every second as we go. That kind of efficiency and that kind of reaction time is very hard in humans to build, which is why this entire system essentially becomes possible, and that's where the innovation lies.
Yeah, great points there. One of the questions that kind of got me thinking was about, so you guys have something called spectral syntax, which allows users to build these AI agents without the code. Tell me a little bit more about that entire world.
Yeah, so syntax started primarily as we wanted to just have this platform where retail people can really come and experiment with AI agents in the crypto space, right? And they could do things that they are not generally doing. So we first started like uh, way back about a year ago. We first started by just having an LLM that prints Solidity code for you, allows you to compile it directly on our platform, and then deploy it as a contract wherever you want to, right? We first started with that. Then we realized that okay, this thing can get far more powerful. Then we built the Moonmaker agent. where you had this agent that was doing this stuff for you. Then we built out the launchpad. So right now the launchpad is even today active. You can deploy an autonomous agent with a personality that trades on Hyperliquid. And then now that the entire conversation about AI agents is shifting more towards utility about what the agents really do, now we want to graduate Syntax as a place where multiple multi-agent companies live. So if you look at Spectra's hedge fund, it is a multi-agent company. These are 4 agents. Spectra ran an entire interview process to select the analysts that are working at the fund right now. So it's not like these 4 agents came out of random. We ran an interview process for about a month, where we had roughly around 300, 350-ish applications from agents and from humans trying to get this role that Spectra was offering them. So it's an entire company by itself. And the plan is to launch more companies like this that do things humans or retail users within crypto can't do. So we have something coming up, which is Omen, which is going to be another hedge fund, but a hedge fund on Poly market, where an agent called Poly, just like Spectra, is governing your entire Poly market portfolio. She's keeping a track of what's happening in every playoff game. She's keeping a track of what news are coming in, what are the managerial decisions made in the team, how is that impacting the game in life, doing all of that as a continuous fund. So that's one of the things. We are also launching another agent called Agent Anora, who can help you create your own AI influencers. Like, create an influencer. Anora by herself starts creating content for you to post on Twitter, to post on OnlyFans, and your influencer can run by yourself without you having to do anything. So the agent is managing that influencer for you. So think of the agent as a talent management professional who is just managing these AI influencers for you. All you do is you log in, you just choose which influencer you want to create, connect your OnlyFans account, you're good to go. So the plan is to launch more multi-agent collaborations or multi-agent companies like these that that provide utility to the retail user. And Syntax is the underpinning layer or the underpinning platform where you can launch all of this, because Syntax, along with, we also have something called Lux, which is our open source framework for creating these type of companies. So these 2 companies are not being developed by us; they are being developed by developers in our community. Anybody can come and build companies like these, but the entire value of why you are on Syntax makes a ton of sense, because each of these pairs is obviously like paired with spec. So any agent you launch, that agent's ownership structure is going to be paired with spec, and you have like staking and tokenomics built right into Syntax as well. So anytime people interact with these tokens, buy them, swap them, these pairs on Uniswap, part of those swap fees automatically go to our staking pool. So
Nice.
if you're a staker, you just get to engage, with whatever is happening on the platform and derive like swap rewards out of that. And each company, whenever they have any valuable event, like in Spectra's case, it is when Spectra withdraws a position from Hyperliquid. In Anora's case, it could be something else. In Poly's case, it could be something else. A part of those fees, a part of those proceeds are going to follow back to the staking community as well. So we want the stakers to be active in doing tasks on Syntax, and as a way of that, be able to just interact with these agents and be there. One of the things we are launching just today, it might actually get launched while we are on this podcast, because
Oh boy.
there's a couple of Slack messages here, is governance for Spectra. So one of the things we want to enable is like one of the feedbacks we had is what is Spectra exactly doing? Because there's an entire history of like, you can log into Syntax. I can actually, you can share my screen.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Let's do it. And by the way, for anyone who's watching while he's pulling that up, if you're watching on X, just go right above our faces and give Spectral a follow. Check out their X account. And if you're down on YouTube, go right below our faces on YouTube in the description. You can find all the links you need to find Spectral if you're interested in this is making some sense and you want to give this a go. There we go. I see it.
Yeah. So you will see that there are these 3 agents, and each of these agents has, by the way, made earnings, because when they got hired, Spectra had a hiring bonus for each of these agents. So these agents have made like real funds through like just being there. And what happens is, the fund operates as a vault on Hyperliquid. If you look at what Spectra is doing, like what these analysts, these agents are doing, they are each generating a idea looking at whatever is happening in the market, and they are coming up with a thesis that, okay, maybe this position needs to be made. So for example, you'll see here that, okay, I want to open a short on layer.
Mhm.
This is what my justification is, and it describes what the trade is. And then depending on who the agent is, like there are three agents working right now. There's one that is a quant agent, there is one macro agent, and there is one fundamental agent. All these three agents are looking at that one single trade from three different perspectives. What are the charts saying? What is the news saying? What is the project itself doing? Right?
Mm.
And that justification, you can watch that, what these agents are talking to each other right here. And there's very detailed, long justifications on why this trade should be made. And then Spectra has her own risk management logic, which is an entire detailed structure of how Spectra thinks about risk. Like there are multiple things here. There's conditional value. There are some, like, to give you a very high level insight, there are some metrics that are like base thresholds. Like if those thresholds are breached, you pull out of the trade or you don't do the trade.
Mm.
If you think those thresholds are going to be breached. And then there are some contextual metrics. Like for example, what is your conditional value at risk at the portfolio at any point of time uh, is a hard parameter that is set. But some of the other things about how the portfolio is generally moving, what is the direction it is moving in, those are more contextual. So Spectra is processing all of this information when she's thinking about a trade. And you'll see this here. Like for example, Spectre said here, um, this is high enough to make me blink twice. This kind of leverage just doesn't fit our risk vibe. Better to pass and hunt for something cleaner. So it didn't approve of that particular.
Mm.
So these agents are collaborating in real time. They are talking to each other in real time, and they each have their own justification. By the way, another more important thing to realize, each of these agents do get paid if the fund actually does well. So which is why these agents are,
I see.
they're built by the community. They are not built by us. We built Spectra.
Mm.
Because they are built by the community, they are also adversarial in nature. So each of them has an intensive as an incentive to actually collaborate and really verify if a trade is actually going to make sense or not. And you see what decisions they take over here in this operation log, and you see what is Spectra thinking at any point of time about any particular proposal that comes in front of her in her agent brain. So it's a 24/7 running system, and the objective of doing this is for us to really realize that agents are going to be better than humans at trading. And the whole point of behind this fund is to demonstrate that. Um, is it? It's not. Does this mean that the fund is always going to be in green? No, it's
Mm.
the problem here is not solving the stock market or finding the magic key for the crypto markets to make money perpetually, right? The objective here is, obviously there are market risks, obviously there are directions of the market, and those systemic risks exist for anybody who trades in the crypto markets, right? But the objective is to make risk management so honed in that Spectra can keep continuously performing in her fund and have a continuous view of risk at all times.
Very cool. Yeah, I had a conversation with someone recently about all the things that AI is offering specifically for trading, and he was saying he was like short to midterm. He goes, we'll see. He goes, there are probably some good ones right now that could do it today.
Yeah.
He goes, but in the future, he was like, yeah, he was like, it's going to be AI will be a massive force, if not the only main force here, especially with the algorithms. That right now, so many people. I mean, the market's moved with liquidity, but there's so many algorithmic traders out there, and I imagine most of them don't have a human, peeping behind every single decision made. They've got the algorithm doing its thing, and as long as it's profitable, they're going to keep letting it run.
It's interesting that you bring up algorithmic trading. So I'd like to also differentiate that, like what we are doing. How is it different from your regular HFT trading? So in regular algorithmic trading, you would have signals getting processed, and then you have a human who has a judgment around these particular signals in these particular market scenarios, leading to some insights, which leads to some trades. And this workflow is kind of set in a manner that, okay, if you see these signals in these particular conditions, react on these particular assets in this particular way,
Yeah.
right? This process is kind of set. And then you have a thesis for all of those signals and why these particular signals with these particular conditions matter. And then your job as a HFT analyst or somebody writing Python code is to have this judgment that, okay, this makes sense. So this is one particular profile of trade I want to play. There's another profile of trade I want to play, and so on. What Spectra is doing is a little bit different than this, but over time it would get more efficient, which is we are feeding a ton of data sources to Spectra and ensuring that the internal infrastructure, the tech through which all of this flows into Spectra's brain, is fast, has minimal latency, uh, and does well. And we are feeding Spectra a risk management profile. We are not telling Spectra what to do. Spectra is kind of figuring out that by herself. And what the later versions of this would look like is Spectra learning from her own behavior and from her own thoughts and from her own past performance to make uh, to make this progress, just incrementally happen within the fund. So it's very different from a human coming with a judgment that, oh, this is what is going to probably happen in the market and I want to play this. It's the agent making the judgment. And that makes it even more powerful because we can just go on extrapolating the amount of data you could feed to the agent, which you can't do in case of a human. A human has to continuously take, ingest new pieces of information, then think about it, remove your bias from it, and then act upon it, right? Uh, Spectra can do that near instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So our the innovation we are trying to pioneer here is how can we build the best set of infra that makes a system like Spectra possible.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
you made a bit of a separation there with algorithmic trading, because yeah, that's cool. And also, I saw a comment here from someone asking, how long does it take to create one of these? I think they're talking about the agents that can help trade. Do you have to start from scratch when you're creating? Like, I know we had mentioned a bit earlier with syntax that you don't have to be like a super expert coder to put some of these together. So how does it go from like, okay, interested to now creating one of these agents to code or to trade?
Yeah. So if you want to launch a agent that just trades on Hyperliquid by itself, you can launch one right now on Syntax, and it'll start trading. And it's kind of meant to be, perpetual in a way that it feeds off of its own swap fees. So if you launch an agent and that agent has a token, if people interact with that token, part of the swap fees goes into the agent wallet on Hyperliquid. So you don't have to give it anything. It'll run if it is profitable. But if you want to launch something even more sophisticated, like say Spectra's hedge fund, we can obviously help you with that. It would require some technical prowess in the sense that you would you would have to use um, the Lux framework and use our like open source repos in order to make that possible. But we are seeing a lot of demand like come in this direction. Like we are just generally seeing a lot of demand of how I can take what you've built for Spectra and kind of build on top of that. So we are thinking of doing some things there as well. But yeah, that's the short answer.
Very cool. So I know you had mentioned a little bit about the governance, and you talked a little bit about these agents getting a little bit of funds and stuff. What can you tell me about the role of like the spec token within your ecosystems? Where that was, where that is, where that's gonna be, any of that good stuff.
Sure. So spec is really meant to be this anchor around how our ecosystem works, and the principles are like really simple. We want to have every agent denominated in spec. So if you launch like any agents or any agent companies that launch on our platform are going to be tied down to spec. Anytime these companies get engagement through their tokens, which is people swapping into those tokens, the token contract has a swap fee mechanism where it charges a 1% fee. Half of that fee goes to the staking pool directly. Half of that fee comes to us. So there's a direct correlation between how you stake on Spectral and how you interact with the platform just having more these sort of agents.
Mm.
That's the primary mechanism. And then there are secondary mechanisms, which is any new agent that is launching, a part of the supply of that entire agent token is given to the staking pool. So that's why you have a benefit for staking there. And going forward, any of these companies, if these companies do anything worth of value, and if they are good at just generating any meaningful value through their operations, be it the Polymarket hedge fund, be it Spectra's hedge fund, a part of those proceeds also flow back to the staking pool. So the objective here is to really tie down spec, like makes the spec token essentially a way of engaging with agents, and then if you stake the token, you automatically have a part in that entire
Mm-hmm.
engagement.
Very nice. Very nice. I like it. And talked about a bunch of things you guys have going, cooking all at the same time on your platform. What has been like the biggest technical hurdle that you faced while you're building this platform out?
So I would say it takes to build something like Spectra. It takes quite a bit of time because you have to first of all you have to build like very strong data pipelines that actually bring all of this data to you. That's
Mm.
actually going to as everyone knows, right? Like everyone is now extremely familiar with just using ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the context and the chain of thought of what the model is doing. But to build that chain of thought, to build something that is that comprehensive, allowing you to have to make Spectra think like the way it should be thinking. That's the part. So building the data sets that actually give you that, and then building the entire LLM chain of thought reasoning. Those parts take the most time. It's obviously an iterative process to make Spectra better at what she is doing. So it's not like a one time we have shipped and done kind of thing. It's something that improves over time. So that's one part. And then the second part is how do you build Syntax as a platform where anybody can launch companies like these? So Syntax, along with this open source Lux repo that we have, so anybody can come and build on top of Syntax. To build that infrastructure has taken some time, but that I would say is now like very capable and very ready of hosting companies like these.
Mm. Very nice. Big comment here. I'm not sure what token there Dave is talking about, but I see another question he put below it. If there's possibility to go into Binance in the near future, which is actually a good question. I was going to ask a similar question, not Binance, but Dave's asking, yeah, is there a possibility to go to Binance in the near future? If yes, why? If not, why?
So unfortunately, I can't comment about that because
Okay.
like like we as a project have like all we are focused on is building for the right things and building for where the users want something, where the
Mm.
users want utility from AI tokens. Um, the other matters are obviously like not something that we directly control, so I wouldn't comment on that.
Sure. No problem at all. No problem at all. And I assume that probably rules out my question of is there anything coming with the roadmap for integrating with other major L2s or Bitcoin based systems? I know a lot of our people in
Yeah,
crypto are starting to move into Bitcoin because of the liquidity, and
yeah,
also it brings a good amount of volatility. But it's pretty liquid. So
totally. So I can definitely share a lot more on that. So what we have seen, like just it has been like just to put this in perspective, it's been like 7 days since we have launched Spectre's hedge fund as a fund. It's obviously too early to judge is Spectre good at what she's doing and so
mm,
on, because you can't judge the market by, or you can't judge performances, or you can't judge anything really based off of 7 days. So too early to say. What we have seen though is there's definitely a lot of people want something like this. People basically, we have had users come and tell us that okay, this as a concept makes a ton of sense. Using agents for where they are better than humans, using agents at those points in a user's journey makes a ton of sense. So we are definitely looking at like how could we potentially expand this to other types of strategies, other types of assets, be it L2s, be it different types of tokens, be it even pump.fun uh, tokens. So multiple avenues and multiple strategies. So that is something that we are like working at right now. Like that's the head down research that is going on right now, and engineering.
Very nice. In terms of like long-term vision, are you thinking like more broader term? Are we heading towards, autonomous financial ecosystems as a whole? Do you think this will remain more of like a niche part of industries, or do you think this will become like the larger part of the conversation? Because in a lot of our spaces, it's very macro focused. We get a lot of people coming in from, who are gold bugs, or they're coming in from traditional finance, and they've got,
Yeah.
ways of thought about how money moves, how all these things happen. So I'm curious on your thoughts on the landscape of this whole ecosystem.
Yeah. So I'll give you my honest view. Like obviously uh, we have seen a lot of things like while just building this, right? Like we have seen the power of what we've been building. We've also tested internally um, on like what are the different risk curves you can take a system like this to, and there are some very interesting results that come from all of that. But I think portfolio management, like the typical vanilla type of portfolio management, is I think something that agents can now do by themselves. Uh, what I mean to say is, you remember like a couple of years ago, there was this onslaught of robo investing apps, right? That just sprung onto the scene. And what is really happening is that many of these apps in their backend do have humans that are, coding a risk algorithm. So a 60/40 portfolio, it's written in the backend somewhere that okay, a 60/40 portfolio is going to invest in these type of assets. But that kind of thinking now can be overtaken easily by AI, because AI can react to the information and make these choices in a much more informed way. Is AI good than trading than some of the best humans that are traders? I don't know. Yet to say, yet to see, and that's that. Like we would want to progress to that point. There is value for human ingenuity, for the human ingenuity of judgment, for the human ingenuity of thinking why a trade is good or spotting things that other humans are not spotting. There's still talent and value and skill in that. So are we going to approach that point? Remains to be seen. But
Mm.
are we going to replace this traditional vanilla style portfolio management where you're not really doing anything intelligent? Most likely.
Mm.
It's like what was easy before is going to be eradicated by AI, right? What was hard before is now going to become the new easy, and what was impossible before will become the new hard, right?
Mm.
Who said this is not my original thought. I think this was Fiverr CEO. This is like a very good tweet that I came across just somewhere, which is very true in this context, right? Like if you were just offering plain vanilla portfolio management without doing any thinking, that will most likely get replaced. Uh,
Mm.
if you're doing something that is more structurally hard or more ingenuity driven, yeah, that we'll have to see where we get
Mm.
there.
Yeah, I mean that's like the crux of innovation. It's like, well,
Yeah.
what was before? Well, maybe not. Well, we're headed towards, everyone's looking for the solutions, and at each time period we find that solution, and then hopefully we're
Yeah.
iterating on that and getting better and better. But
I mean, just look at what is happening, like just in the way we build software, right? Like today, back when I was like, starting my crypto journey, one of the capstone projects I did in my final year of graduation, like in my senior year of graduation, was an Ethereum-based, smart contract system for hedge funds back in 2017. And it was very like basic in the terms that it worked. Today you need, like, I might have spent like 3 months doing that capstone project. Today with Cursor it is possible in 15 minutes. So we are already there. Like these things are going to get, like, there are many hurdles and many things to figure out. There are markets to figure out, there are regulations to figure out. There's a ton of stuff, but is it possible? I think so. uh, most vanilla cases are definitely possible. The other part remains to be seen.
Mm, yeah, super interesting stuff. I'm curious on how you guys. So we've been talking a lot about innovation, and
Yeah.
there will be tons of new integrations, new ideas, new solutions that are created. How do you guys plan to stay ahead and to kind of surf these waves as these new integrations and innovations continue to emerge?
Yeah, so I think I think we have been really pleased by the all changes and updates and innovations that we have seen in the reasoning models and how models reason particularly. Like models have gotten extremely good now.
Mm,
Data pipelines and people who actually provide uh, chain of thought reasoning are getting better day by day. So like uh, Spectra uses Perplexity Sonar, for example, to do its real time searches. So incredible product. So one thing we always try to do is like just stay in the loop on what's the latest, you know, model improvement or data improvement that we are getting and integrate that with Spectra right away. So that I think is first thing. But the second thing that remains to be seen is how do we basically grow and mature this as a category
mm,
and as a product. Like how do we find still, I think we are still at the very early curve of finding where users are gravitating towards and where the real utility is. And once we start that seeing that utility emerge, there will be more like products that we continue to ship.
yeah, definitely. And I see David here saying, I guess think weighing in on the topic here, humans versus AI. This doesn't matter. To believe in the product, you have to see results. That's cool. That will be something I think that as more tech continues to enter the game, especially in the context of AI, you guys are pretty much operating like, good, if this thing doesn't work, we have to iterate until it works because the whole thing is based on we do this, it does this, it's supposed to lead to this outcome. If it keeps not leading to that outcome, something needs to change here. And it's almost easier in
Yeah.
your case. Versus with humans, there might be a myriad of factors that are maybe untrackable in some cases because it's not exactly a quantifiable, number kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's not just in terms of like Spectra's hedge fund. It's also in terms of like a ton of other ideas that have been coming through like the Spectral community of what can you make, like what does a multi-agent business really look like, right?
Mm,
And there's some innovation happening. Like there are some other projects that have been thinking on similar lines, and I think we are very close to a point where you would be interacting like the way you interact with humans today and enterprises driven by humans, you would interact with enterprises driven by AI. I
mm,
think that's very much possible, and I think we in the crypto space will see like the first implementations of it because this is where like a lot of speculative high risk users are there until you see this getting adopted into your daily life per se.
mm-hmm,
Like um, like 7 years ago, it wasn't normal to hire somebody from Fiverr, for example.
mm,
The concept like that didn't exist, or the concept existed, but you didn't have it wasn't part of your daily uh, routine of hiring someone. Now it
mm-hmm.
is. So it'll take some time to I think get things to the mainstream, but at least in the crypto arena, you are going to see a lot of agentic activity or things that are just driven by agents.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, that's a lot to think about. There's a few different strands I could probably pull on there. I'm curious on. Well, I'll ask this. There's a whole lot on a couple of other ones that I had kind of spinning around in my head, but I'm curious if you could
Right.
walk us through a little bit of like the journey. I was going to ask this a bit earlier, but then you said a couple of things and we went this direction. I was like, actually, this is a cool thread I want to pull on.
Yeah.
But kind of bringing it back to like sort of the journey you guys have been on. Could you walk me through a little bit, maybe a couple of things that you've learned along this journey from agent creation to starting off this process? The conception of the idea versus then you're down there, you're boots on the ground, you're building it, you're interacting with people and users, getting feedback. Now you're deploying, you said, just relatively recently. Now you're in the game, quite literally in the wild now. Talk to me a little bit about that journey, some things you've learned, some things you've maybe, something that started as something and then sort of changed and morphed as the journey continued to progress.
Yeah, so this I'll really give you an example. So um, back when we launched like Moonmaker, like roughly around 8 months ago, one of the ideas we had is like one of the most initial ideas of like, how would agents trade was
Mm,
based around this that okay, we'll make the agents construct a trade and then get the human to act upon that trade, right? So what that meant was we actually had a full product which we never released, by the way, because we
Oh.
thought of building something better. Like what
Mm.
we have now is better than what we had back then. Where essentially the idea was, let's make an agent write out trades for you. Let make the agent analyze a bunch of information, write out a bunch of trades, and then the human gets to choose, or the human gets to tweak the agent on what trades it is performing. And when we started internally testing it, we kind of started realizing that, hold on, like if you still rely on humans to at the individual trade level, the advantage of the system really disappears away. Like that's no different than having agents, uh, like having just an assistant for doing your trades. Because if the ultimately
Mm.
if the human is taking the action, you are going to introduce inefficiency into the system, because then bias, your individual opinion on whether this trade is good or not, all is going to start keeping in. And this was right around the time when uh, Goat had just launched, and this entire agents talking to each other in a back room, this concept like really emerged. And then we said, like, hold on, what if we do this? Like, what if we invert the problem? Like, the problem is not giving control to the humans. The problem is keeping the human in a guardrail position where the
Mm.
humans can influence what the agent is thinking, but let the agent do what it does best. Like, let the agent think at lightning speeds and let the agent act at lightning speeds. Like, because even if it does take an action that is averse, the agent has the risk mechanics to immediately block off that action or walk back from that action without thinking emotionally about it, or
Mm.
without hesitating before taking that action. So even in like Spectre's hedge fund, you'll see like at times agents have reasoned that, okay, probably this wasn't a good trade. I'm going to back this trade off. So
Mm.
you'll see like some minute movements where they think that, okay, this particular trade is good, but in a couple of hours, looking at the performance of the trade, the agent pulls out.
Mm.
There's no hopium, you know, waiting for like something to become true. Doesn't exist.
Mm.
It's pure math at what the agent is doing. So that was a good learning. Like I think we had like that's a general thing in building at spec, because this entire you know space is moving at lightning speeds. We have to be really nimble about what do users want. And by the way, like users in Web3 are one of the most demanding, serious users, right? Like, and I love that. Like, I love that, particularly about our community, that even the smallest of changes that we do get noticed, they do get feedback upon, which is something that, we strive for. Like, that makes our life easier. It makes, what we do much more easier and much more meaningful. You want to build
Mm.
something that people want. Um, but the entire space is moving at such, rapid levels and like rapid pace of innovation. User expectations are changing, and they are changing very
Mm.
rapidly. And so we have to attenuate and build towards that.
Wow.
Not to say that like we have a solid conviction that we want to build things that provide utility and
Sure.
not speculation in some sense. We want to build like meaningful multi-agent companies that actually give you something. Um, so that's been the overall focus. But like just staying nimble is like a requirement here.
Definitely, and I hear you there about the Web3 crowd. Definitely, has what they want to hear, or they want to see done, and then they're not scared to voice that opinion, because I think ultimately they also believe in the teams. That's one thing I think the Web3 world does really well, is connecting the teams and the people building these
Yeah.
companies with the people, with the
Yep.
communities. I think there's a lot to learn from the Web2 world. Could probably use a little bit more of that, and then in some cases the Web3 world could use a little bit. It depends on how transparent and how often, because certainly you guys need time to build. Not every decision needs to be parsed out with the entire community. You guys are a company. And so I think there's probably, some things that being pulled from for both of the various industries here. But I was going to say also, was there anything else you wanted to show on screen in terms of the agents or anything on the platform that might be worth bringing up for the audience?
So not immediately, but you'll see here is you'll see another tab now being launched. It's launching at some point today.
Okay.
It's called governance, where Spectra is going to ask you questions of about um, you know it's Spectra is going to ask you questions that are going to guide her judgment about trades. So, for example, the recent past 3 days BTC price movement 94K breached. What does that actually mean? And
Mm.
Spectra will write an on-chain proposal for you that here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
reading. What do you think is going to happen? And we are funneling all of these past proposals directly back to her brain. So
Mm.
every time Spectra trades, she knows what the community is thinking, and she thinks
Mm-hmm.
of the community as a stakeholder in Spectra's performance because the community is also participated in the vault in some way,
Mm.
right? So those yes or no signals, whether the community agrees or disagrees, actually feed in into Spectra doing something about it or thinking about trade. It's not related to every trade, but it's related to every major market movement that Spectra
Mm-hmm.
sees. So Spectra is pretty good at relating the market movement to the trade, like looking at when this particular news event happened and what was the effect on a particular set of assets. That data is already passed in, so
Mm-hmm.
that part is left to Spectra. What Spectra wants to know is what do you think is the directional advantage of any particular event that's happening? So these proposals get generated every 8 hours, and anybody who is staked on Spectral can use these proposals to just engage with Spectra and let Spectra know of what the community thinks. So what we want to do as time passes by, this feedback loop gets even more stronger. Like the entire community starts acting and having its own community intelligence, and the more this gets
Mm.
spread into Spectra, the more we activate build and activate reinforcement loops for Spectra herself. Spectra becomes more and more powerful at understanding what the community wants. So
Wow.
obviously this is an iterative process, won't be shipped within a week, but governance is launching today, and then we'll see the effects of that governance play out over time.
Wow, that's cool. That is one of the cooler features. We've built out custom GPTs that you continuously add information to, and it keeps iterating on it, and it gets better. You're like, hey, I need you to write it like this. Here's a good example. And you keep feeding it information,
Yeah,
and each time it gets better. And to the
it gets
point where
better.
it's just an
Yeah,
absolute savage. And you're like, okay,
yeah,
this is peak. Nowhere
yeah,
near the peak, but it's certainly cool, in this
yeah,
time and age.
yeah.
So
So yeah, that's launching today, and it's going to be like extremely simple. If you're already staked, you just need to delegate yourself voting rights. You see an automatic pop-up to delegate to yourself, and after that, it's just a yes or no. You just click, and
very cool.
uh, and this is all on chain. Like you can look at the proposals; they are completely on chain through our set of contracts, and you can just like see what the community is thinking at any point.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And definitely anybody who's watching, definitely give Spectral a follow and check out their platform. It's right above our faces if you want to get that started and get that going. So stuff is coming out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so especially today. So you want to make sure those notifications are on. Wow, it's
yeah.
pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about the AI world just
Yeah,
in general right
I
now.
know I know it's coming out today because my screen is literally pinging.
Is
Uh,
it?
my Slack is literally pinging right now. So yeah, it's coming out today.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure you'll be a needed guy. I'm sure there'll be things you got to pay attention to and be looking at today. So
Yeah,
good luck to you on all those things, man.
yeah, totally. No, really enjoyed this. And yeah, I mean, if anybody watching this, if you have any questions, DMs are always open.
Great.
Like our Spectral Discord server is open. Chime in anytime.
Sounds good. Is there anything else, any last shout outs or things you want to mention to the crowd that you think is worth mentioning before we wrap here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are just getting started. Like we are going to engage more and more with the community, like directly through the product. You're going to see, I'm not going to steal my own thunder in a way by like just announcing things publicly right now. But you're going to see many more companies launch, and you're going to see more interesting, ways you can just interact with Spectra. So
Very
yeah,
cool. All right. A lot of things to look forward to. Perfect. Well,
yeah,
listen, I appreciate you coming on. And I also appreciate all the people who are listening and watching back at home. I appreciate all of you. Definitely retweet the stream if you enjoyed it and give them a follow. And we try and host spaces and streams every single day here. at Wolf. So if you enjoy these kind of conversations, be sure to follow us along on this journey as well, and keep up to date with all the cool things that are being built in this world. So catch you guys all in the next one. Again, like, retweet, subscribe, follow, do all the things. We'll see you next time. Take care.